What's up, guys? Welcome to your 91st Android tutorial for the new Boston. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is get rid of that error I showed you in the last tutorial. Or not necessarily an error, but every time we use our browser and we click a link, it's going to open up a new intent. Use the intent to open up some kind of a browser instead of using our WebView like we'd like. And what we need to do is we kind of need to override that intent that's happening. And so what we're going to do is how we're going to set that up is by setting up a WebView client. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to say our browser dot, and then we can say set WebView client, and as you can see it takes a WebView client within its parameters. Now we don't have a WebView client yet, so we're going to create one. So we're going to create a new class. We can either do that over here or down here, down below in the code, which I'm going to do. So whatever you guys feel more comfortable with. But we're going to create a new object, which again is a WebView client. So we're going to say new rview client, something like that. It doesn't really matter what you guys want to label that as. And it's like, hey, we don't know what this is. We're going to say create a class rview client right here. And we're going to say whatever, finish. Dang it. I hate how it does that. Never mind. I'm going to do it. Yeah, I might as well just do it in this new code over here. So again, basically all we're doing is we created a new class that is going to be a WebView client. So we're going to just create a new object of the WebView class that we just created, and then I just hovered over and said create a class, which created this class for me. And as you can see, the most important thing is it extends the WebView client class. So that's going to allow us to, again, since our set WebView client is looking for that, we need to say extends WebView client as well. So now what we want this class to do is we're basically going to make a Boolean, a true false, but we're going to override because it's coming from something else. So we just have to override that method. I know we haven't really got into what override means, but it's kind of a Java thing. Don't worry too much about it. We're just going to say public Boolean and then say should override URL loading. And this is going to be a web service, or I'm sorry, a web view called v, and we're going to call this, or the second parameter is going to be a string called URL. And we're going to have to import a WebView. So you're like, what's going on here? Basically, this is just a method that we need to set up. And it's going to say which view we want to override and basically which URL. When we use the load URL method on our WebView from the previous class, it's going to go through this whole thing right here. So we're going to need the WebView, which WebView we're dealing with, and which URL it's trying to load. So that's basically what that method's doing right there. And then what we're going to say is we're going to say view, or v, for a WebView that's being passed in right here. And then we're just going to say load URL, the same method, and then we're going to say URL as well. So basically that's the method that we're kind of setting up. And it's still giving us an error because it's Boolean. It's looking for a true false statement, and so we're just going to say return true. So I don't know if that's kind of confusing. Let's run it, make sure it works, and I'm going to kind of talk over everything that we did again, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. Or as that's loading, I'll just talk over that again. Okay, again, Android will use an intent that uses its own browser to open up links of some sort. So we want to override that. So how we're going to do that is using the set WebView client, and then we don't have a WebView client yet, so we're going to say create our own, a new instance of this class that we just created. So we had to create that class, so it created it for us, and it extended the WebView client, which is what we're looking for. And then we created this method called should override URL loading, which takes in a WebView and a URL. So we take that WebView and we use the load URL method, and then you know, basically we're just setting that to true, so it's going to load on our web view, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, but it might not. And sorry if it doesn't. So let's try and click like blog here, and hopefully it'll load now within here. As you can see, the blog section is loading in here. The next, and then just make sure tutorial section right here as well. So yeah, it looks like it's working. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of scale down this browser to fit in this window. So as you can see right now, it's zoomed in. We don't really want it to start zoomed in like this, so we're going to scale it down. I'm going to show you some other settings that we can use with the WebView class, and I'll catch you guys then. Have a good one.